Thank you so much for making time to come to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Wow. When the news broke out that you were given judgment and you had won the case, for a minute, somewhere last year or 2 years ago, I thought the case was, thrown out of court or something. And all of a sudden it came out you had won the case. That was just 6 days ago. Where were you at the time? Were you in the courtroom?
I was on the corridor of the court, because I was working.
Right.
And answering calls. I was getting phone calls back and forth, and I can't answer the calls in the court, so I was outside. And I was trying to tell people that, listen, I'll get back to you, but it was an emergency, so I had to stay on the corridor and then answer these calls. Then my lawyers came out and were smiling, and they said, you should have been inside. And I'm like, really? So yeah, we won. Like, okay. And I didn't even ask how much because, yeah, we won. And they're like, 250,000.
So that figure is true.
Yeah, dollars. Like,
US dollars.
like what?
Have you done the conversion already?
I've seen people doing it, but yeah, considering the way the exchange rate is going, I don't want to think CDs again.
Wow. Now, what came to my mind as a young person who is also an entrepreneur is the moment the money hits your account, was it a check? Was it cash that was...
No, they haven't given it to me yet.
Oh,
So-
you haven't received the money yet?
No. That's how it is. So there's a whole process that you have to go through to get it.
Everybody is sitting here thinking,
And I've got to-
you have the money sitting in your
People are
account.
sending me messages. I have over 2,000 unread messages on WhatsApp.
Of course, of
think-
all friends who have to show up. I mean, guys who thought they believed in you,
Yeah.
who have to show up and ask for their piece. So when do you expect this money to hit? This year?
I don't know, but yeah, because it's a legal process. So
Right.
I'll rely on my lawyers to handle everything, and then hopefully I get the money, and then yeah.
Was it a deliberate thing for you to put your sound out there? Did you give it to somebody at CAF? How did they manage to get hold of your sound and use it without your permission, which came about with all these fines? Well, how did it start?
So, a bit of backstory about my music process and my creation process is, I'm not a musician. I'll never claim to be one. I can't even play any instruments.
But you're a sound engineer.
Yeah, self-taught. So I taught myself how to make beats, using FL Studio.
Right.
And over time, I've been trying to improve myself, get better. It's been a way of me expressing myself, So it's not really, I've not really made the beats that I want to sell it, or I'm making beats for this rapper or something. It's always like, this is how I feel, and this is how I think this sound should come out.
Okay.
And so then I create it. So when I do it, then I put it online for people who want to listen and people who want to enjoy it as well. And yeah, over time, people began to want to use them. But most of my friends were music artists at the time, and they'd always complain that my beats were too full. Like there was no space for them to ride on the beats, as they like to put it. But one of my friends, Emmanuel, he was in film school. One day he asked me to give him a certain beat that I put online. He wanted to use it for a documentary. So I gave it to him, and he asked me for 2 other versions, and I made them for him. And that's when I realized, when I saw the documentary, wow, my music actually works with film and those kinds of things. Maybe it's not for rapping.
Right.
So I should explore that side some more. So, and the thing about music is everybody's creative. The whole world, we have so many creatives. But you have to set yourself apart in a certain way.
Right.
In this world, ideally, everybody has to be unique in their own way. And so how was I going to be unique in my music, journey? And I decided I was going to make them more African.
Right.
So African-inspired film music. So, the Fonton Froms, the congas, and all those.
I mean, the one that CAF took, for instance, I listened to it on YouTube, and it's typical Ghanaian, African. And you can hear all the drums in it. But it's so old. Surprisingly, it's been there for like 8 years.
Yeah.
And it only happened to be taken by CAF in 2019.
2018, 2019, yeah.
Wow. So there was no connection with CAF. Nobody,
Nothing.
They just took it.
Yeah, it was just there for people to listen. And I actually do put it there categorically that if you want to use it for commercial purposes, reach out to me, and then I'll give you a license.
All right.
Because I knew people who were selling beats. There's this guy I follow on social media, Vibe Beats and Superstar. Oh, those guys are big, and they, I'm seeing a guy driving my dream car.
Wow.
And stuff just from selling.
From
beats.
selling beats.
Yeah. So I was like, maybe one day my beats would reach that level. But until then, let me continue to improve. Let me continue to work on my stuff. So I would have never thought that CAF would use my beats.
But what happened to you? Give me how it felt like. When the first day you heard or saw CAF play your music, was it on TV? Was it on radio? How did you get to it? Did somebody call you?
Yes, someone called me, a very good friend of mine who listens to my music in his car most of the time. So he'd give me feedback. Yo, I like this, and that kind of thing. So one day he called me early in the morning. It was a Saturday, I believe, and he said, I think that I've heard your beat somewhere, and so you should go check it out. So he sent me the link, follow the link on Twitter, and there it was. Yeah. So they use it to advertise the African Player of the Year,
Right.
African Male Player of the Year, and African Female Player of the Year. So the promotional, graphics, and the players who come as standard, and the sound was playing in the background. Like, hey, okay, these guys, okay, cool. So when that happened, I sent them tweets. I gave it a thought. I sat down, I was like, what just happened? How am I going to deal with this? So then I tweeted, I'm like, CAF, you used my music without my permission. This is not right. If anything, you need to get in touch.
Do you think CAF did it deliberately?
I think in this part of the world, it's a thing that we haven't learned, that you can't use somebody's creative assets or anybody's
product,
intellectual property without their permission.
Right.
We haven't learned that culture. And so people just go online, grab anything, and then use it. I mean, even my day-to-day work, because I work in digital media just like you, anytime my people take something, I ask them, do you know where it's coming from? Are you sure of the source? Do we have permission to use it? Because I used to work at My Job Online. We got sued one day for using a video, an engineering video, to illustrate something in a story, in a news story. And then we uploaded it on YouTube. Somebody sued us for $10,000 for using 30 seconds of his video.
So you had a background knowledge of how these things work.
Yes.
You are very careful, right?
Yes, so I'm very careful. Even in my beat making, I do not sample. I do not use somebody's sound or anything. If I do, it's not commercial. That one, it's free. It's out there. Anybody can take and repurpose. But if it has someone's content, I will never be able to monetize it unless I have permission from the person to do so. So I've known this for a while, and I've been learning about copyright, intellectual property, and the risks. I mean, I saw a case where somebody won $5 million for using a sample of somebody's song.
Wow.
Cisco's song.
Wow.
It's his biggest song, but he never gets anything from that song because there's a line, "Living la vida loca." It comes from a song that was performed by Ricky Martin, but it was written by a different person, and that person owns the right to that line. And because of that,
So even though Cisco made a hit song with
yes,
it,
he can never make anything from it.
till today.
Till today. Yeah.
Man, this copyright industry thing is
Very
different.
serious, but people just take it for granted. So knowing this, I decided, you know what? Let me call these people out. Let's talk. So hit them up on social media, sent them emails. Eventually, they reached out and asked me what the way forward was. They apologized and they acknowledged using it. And I said, well, at this point, you just have to compensate me because
Exactly.
you've used it. Didn't hear from them again. And over time, that began to upset me because if this had happened,
How much time are we talking about?
I'm talking like, okay, so
From the last email that you received?
from the last email, they hit me up and said they wanted to talk to me on phone. So they asked my number, I gave it to them. But the conversation didn't even happen. Like they called me, I say hello, they say hello, they couldn't hear me, we never had a conversation, and they died. And then I had a lawyer send them a letter telling them to cease and desist and then to pay me.